Hello, and welcome to the Pittsburgh City Council Standing Committees meeting for February 19th, 2020. My name is Chris Dodson, and with us today is Alex Nagy, our sign language interpreter. City Council will discuss the following legislation for a preliminary vote. Finance and Law Committee, Mr. Lavelle, the chair. Deferred paper, bill number 2020-0022, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code at Title II, Fiscal Article 7, Business-Related Taxes, Chapter 241, Amusement Tax, Section 241.01, definitions to update language in the City Code. New papers, 2020-0107, resolution amending resolution number 94 of 2019, providing for the issuance of a warrant in the total sum of $6,857.02 in favor of Diane and Ronald J. Balky, care of Robert Pierce and Associates, PC, 2500 Golf Tower, 707 Grant Street, Pittsburgh, PA 15219. A warrant in the sum of $918.08 in favor of City of Pittsburgh, treasurer, and warrant in the total sum of $724.90 in favor of Jordan Tax Service as final settlement related to the action filed in Common Pleas Court of Allegheny County by changing the issuance to read as follows. The issuance of a warrant in the total amount of $8,500 payable to Diane and Ronald J. Balky, care of Robert Pierce and Associates, PC, 2500 Golf Tower, 707 Grant Street, Pittsburgh, PA 15219, as final settlement related to the action filed in the Common Pleas Court of Allegheny County. Bill number 2020-0108, resolution for issuance of a warrant in the amount of $490 in favor of Tri-Rivers Consulting Services related to expert medical testimony of James L. Cosgrove, MD, for use at trial in the matter of Willa Mae Matthews versus City of Pittsburgh, filed at AR 16-001700. Public Safety Services Committee, Mr. O'Connor is the chair. Deferred papers, bill number 2020-0070, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of public safety to enter on behalf of the City of Pittsburgh into financial and in-kind sponsorship agreement for the city's Office of Special Events 2020 season. Public Works Committee, Mr. Coghill is the chair. New papers, bill number 2020-0103, resolution granting unto Matt Barnett, Day 3 Design, their successors, and assigns the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense a stormwater runoff mitigation rain garden at 915 Liberty Avenue in the 2nd Ward, 6th Council District of the City of Pittsburgh. Human Resource Committee, Mr. Kraus is the chair. New papers, bill number 2020-0105, resolution for the issuance of a warrant in favor of effective in the amount of $6,878.25 for digital advertising services in connection with citywide recruiting plan and providing for the payment of the cost thereof. Bill number 2020-0106, resolution providing for the issuance of a warrant in favor of SHRM in the amount of $16,500 for Pennsylvania and federal labor law posters and providing for the payment of the cost thereof. Land Use and Economic Development, Mr. Wilson is the chair. New papers, Bill number 2020-0110, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of city planning of the city of Pittsburgh to accept a remittance from Point Park University in the amount of $15,000. This remittance will fund the design and fabrication of historic district signage not to exceed $15,000. Urban Recreation Committee, Reverend Burgess is the chair. New paper, 2020-0111, resolution adopting the plan submitted to the electors of the city of Pittsburgh entitled Restoring Pittsburgh Parks and the Parks Plan collectively, the Parks Plan, by the Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy prior to the November 5th, 2019 municipal election as the official parks plan of the city of Pittsburgh and the City of Pittsburgh Parks Trust Fund. And the Governmental Affairs Committee, Ms. Gross is the chair. Deferred paper, Bill 2020-0019, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh official sewage facilities plan for the District 15 Beta Development at 1465 Smallman Street, Pittsburgh, PA 15222. New papers, Bill number 2020-0104, resolution authorizing the approval of the 2020 Housing Opportunity Fund Annual Allocation Plan, and Bill number 2020-0109, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewage facilities plan for the townhomes on Fifth Avenue project located on tax map parcel 52-G-133 at 5127, 5129, 5131, 5133, and 5135 Fifth Avenue, Pittsburgh, PA 15232. This concludes the reading for February 19th, 2020. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Good morning and welcome to today's Standing Committee meeting for Wednesday, February 19th, 2020. Our first order of business is public comment. Anyone wishing to comment before City Council has 3 minutes to do so. Please give your name and neighborhood for the record. The green light will indicate the start of your 3 minutes. The yellow light indicates you have 1 minute to summarize, and the red light comes on, your time is up. May we please have the first speaker?
Dr. Ronald N. Miller, Beltouver, and the West End. Westwood is the Pittsburgh Westwood Elementary School is one of the worst pre-university schools in Pennsylvania. 70% of the kids that attend are not proficient in math and 50% in language. We saw some evidence of that yesterday, but under the leadership of David May, the principal, there is an even lower level of civility. Concern of council is the child, citizens. are the public actions of Central Catholic educated, Roman Catholic University educated, Mr. O'Connor more pro or more anti-child? For good Catholic, he says so, public, Mr. Coghill, more pro or more anti-child? Why have these two counselors, with so much Catholicism in their background and foreground, not advocated pursuit of Roman Catholic priests in our city who have assaulted our children? There's been no public statement. Mr. O'Connor is now looking at his phone. You can look down all you like. It's not, the point is this: you haven't done anything or haven't said anything on behalf of our children. A concern of council is public comment, so we think. Citizens are Ms. Krause, Mr. Krause, Ms. Kale-Smith, Ms. Gross, Mr. Burgess, and Ms. Pree and Ms. Chris. Are they more pro or more anti-public comment? I think that all of the above mentioned, including this council, should consult Haney versus Roberts. It's coming to you. Concern of council is transparency regarding biosafety in our city and in our country. Citizens, are you aware that this council has not taken any position on the availability of the 2019 nCoV coronavirus that is afflicting China and the rest of the world? The University of Pittsburgh now has a sample of that. We have not been consulted about this. There's been nothing from this council that has said there may be a problem in the acquiring of this virus. The biosafety lab in Oakland does not guarantee more than 99% escape prevention. So once again, Oakland is at the epicenter of danger, not only to our city, but to our children. I view this as completely unacceptable and will be pursued.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Next speaker, please. Seeing no other speakers, we will now, yes, sir. You don't have to.
Oh, okay.
Yep, you just begin.
My name is David Fisher, 221 zip code. This is about child trafficking and what are the causes of it. A big part of it, in the not too distant past and current and future, is the opioid problem and addiction there. Now there's a problem with even Harvard Medical School doesn't know what to do about CBD, cannabidiol. It comes in gummies. It's over the counter. The legislation on it is there isn't any. Harvard Medical School says even the I had it here. I was getting ready here. I didn't know this would be starting like so quick. It ties into like Juul is openly advertised by neon signs at cigarette and those type of stores, those head shops and pipe shops and stuff like that. And Juul, I go into some places and there's a sign on the counter that you have to be 21 and show ID and everything else to get the product Juul, Juul. Child trafficking, and that's another thing. Child trafficking was recognized by the first Comprehensive Human Trafficking Law, Act 105. Child trafficking, anyway, January of this year, last month was supposed to be National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. I didn't see anything about that anywhere. I came across this morning at about 4 o'clock in the morning. Child trafficking as National Human Trafficking Awareness Month was January of 2020. This is the first one. Now, these different months for this, that, this is something kind of important, you know? And if you're going to cover it up, there's other options. Okay, let's just go with, this is different. This isn't an option or anything. Victims of human trafficking may not have access to their ID or travel documents. 2, not be in control of their own finances. 3, have very few possessions. 4, work excessively long, unusual hours with little or no pay. I've seen that happen. Not to be able to clarify their address living situation. There is a toll-free number for human trafficking if somebody wants to take it down and publicize it a little bit. It's 1-888-373-7888. Again, or you can call 911, but the human trafficking national number is 1-888-373-7888.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Next speaker, please. Seeing none, we will now move on to our standing committee agenda. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Reverend Burgess. Mr. Coghill. Here. Ms. Gross.
Here.
Mr. Kraus.
Here.
Mr. O'Connor. Here. Ms. Kell Smith. Mrs. Strasburger. Mr. Wilson. Here. Mr. Lavelle.
Here.
7 members present.
This morning, we're going to go a little out of order because the URA is here, but they cannot stay long. So we're going to move to Councilwoman Gross's committee on page 7, and we're going to read Bill 104, which is the allocation of the Housing Opportunity Fund.
Bill 104, resolution authorizing the approval of the 2020 Housing Opportunity Fund Annual Allocation Plan.
Motion to approve, discussion. That was such a short title, it caught me by surprise. Can we have the members of the URA up to the table? Sometimes they go on and on and on and on, and that was a very short one. Thank you.
Morning.
And if you could just identify yourselves and let us know your titles and give us a brief overview for the record. Thank you.
David Geiger, Government Affairs.
Jessica Smith Perry, Center for Housing Opportunities.
Wonderful. So we haven't really had a public presentation at this table, so if you just want to give us a summary.
Yes, so today we are here to talk about the 2020 HOF allocation plan. We are now entering into the funding round for the 3rd year of the Housing Opportunity Fund, which you all so thankfully voted in a few years ago, and we've been operating programs for about 18 months. And those programs include the rental gap program where we fill the gaps on rental developments throughout the city. It also includes for sale development program where we fill the gaps for community development corporations to do for sale housing. And then our consumer programs that are being utilized very heavily throughout the entire city are our home repair program, our homeowner assistance program, which helps lower income homeowners get up to $30,000 worth of repairs done to their house. We have a down payment program which helps households as high as 115%. So really households as high as almost $90,000 annual income to purchase a house and get up to $7,500 to do so. And then we also have a brand new program as of about a year ago, the Housing Stabilization Program, which provides rental assistance for households prior to them getting evicted and prior to them being eligible for other federally funded programs.
So I'm going to ask for a summary because I didn't bring my notes with me from the briefing, that we have kind of 2 categories of rental housing and then home ownership.
Yes.
And we have units that are stabilized.
Yes.
So these funds prevented them from being lost to market increases. And then we have units in both categories that are new. So if you want to just give us a general breakdown of kind of like how much money has been allocated and actually has already gone out the door.
Right.
And then the outcomes.
Okay, so yeah, you can see on the slides we passed out at the briefing, and I think David emailed them out. We are well through the 2018 funding. We're almost 70%, 75% through the expenditures of that, though we are well committed into 2019, and for the housing stabilization program and the rental gap program have started expending 2019 funding as well. But we do have the majority of the 2019 funding physically at the trustee right now.
Right, and out the door. And then, so what impacts have we had over the last whole kind of 3 years of the housing opportunity?
Absolutely.
Fund?
So on the rental and on the for sale side, we have committed funding to 838 units.
That's amazing. That's a really high number.
And that's not counting the homeowner repair programs. Right now with our homeowner repair program, we have about 10 houses completed, another 50 under construction, and another 100 that we've reviewed their application and we're waiting to get a contractor assigned to them. So
I lost my, is that nearly 200 in the pipeline?
I'm hopeful by about 18 months of running that program, we'll have 200 people through.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of roughly put in my notes, because again, I didn't bring the exact notes from the briefing in front of me, that it's, 800 or so rentals preserved or created new, and then closing in between 150 and 200 of homeownership preserved or created new.
Right. And we've had 72 people as of yesterday use our down payment closing cost assistance program to purchase their first home in the city of Pittsburgh. And we pulled the data on that. That has crossed all 9 council districts.
I think that's really fantastic outcome, and it's one of the things I just want to briefly touch on, and then I'll stop. That one of the really important conversations that we had in the creation of the fund was that I think Councilman LaValle used to say, we're not going to build our way out of this. It's very expensive to build the new units. Yes, we do need some new units, especially in redistributing where we have low-income rental around the city and in neighborhoods where it's their own priority, and we're happy to help there. But the preservation, either of rental units and the preservation of homeownership, is really important. And because if we lose our local control and ownership, we've literally lost wealth in the city to someone else. So very, very happy to see those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I wish everyone could see what I see every day when we have our homeowners come in to sign their documents. They are so happy because there's not a program out there that they can really access to repair their homes other than this program.
Wonderful news. It's really important and timely given the kind of the speculation pressure in a lot of neighborhoods. So I said I would stop, so I'm going to give up. Thank you.
Councilman Coghill?
Yes. Hello, Jessica, David. Thanks for being here. Sounds like you're doing a lot of good work there.
Thanks.
I feel like I was put in office to look after my district. And do you have a breakdown of the actual dollars that went per district?
We can get that for
Yeah,
you.
we can get that for you based on the different programs we can outline for you.
Okay. And broken down in 3 ways, if you would.
Okay.
New ownership, rehab, and what was the third? Down payment, I guess,
Okay.
right? So if I can get a dollar figure on my district and the rest of the council districts, I would
Yep.
appreciate it. Thank you, Jessica.
Councilman Wilson?
For being here today. I just wanted to ask you just a couple questions about the program and how someone would access the program. If you were someone that were in need of these funds, how would someone enter into the program?
So it really depends which program, but if it's a consumer-based program for homeowner repair or for our down payment, for homeowner repair, they would contact us. They would contact the URA. We have all kinds of brochures circulating around there, and we've gotten so many inquiries. If they get any of the 100 people at the URA, they will get to the right place to apply for the homeowner repair. The down payment, we have done a lot of outreach with lenders and realtors, but primarily lenders in the city to advertise that so they get it to their clients. And then our housing stabilization program, which is our rental assistance program, we have 4 providers where they go directly to the providers. But as of in a couple of weeks, if anyone in your district needs the rental assistance funding, they would contact 211, which is United Way's helpline. and they would be put into the program.
So if someone's in need, they would just call United Way and they could be enter into this program.
Yes.
And I know you've done some surveys on how the users are comfortable with the program and what maybe could be improved. Has this come up at all? Like not going through United Way, but through the URA process?
Yeah, on the rental assistance, we've really, because this is brand new to us, so we've really been trying to figure out the best process, and that's why we're bringing United Way on, because our four providers are YWCA, Macedonia Face, the Urban League, and Pittsburgh Mercy. They got swamped real quickly when we opened up our gates, so that's why we're bringing them on.
And is there, to run this program, is there a lot of money being spent on staff?
Administration.
Yeah.
So the administration for the program, the URA can take up to 10% in admin for the program. And the first year of operations, we were figuring out what programs are we going to run and looking at the policy behind it. So we had a much smaller staff of about 4 of us. But now that we have the programs up and running, and the homeowner repair program especially is very staff intensive for us. So we are now up to about 7 or 8 people that are funded solely or partly by the Housing Opportunity Fund Administration.
Are some of those costs shared with some nonprofits that enter into the program, that work with you all so that it can alleviate some of those costs at all? Or is that something we're looking into in the future?
So we have not-for-profit program administrators that are administering the construction and getting paid through the construction contracts for the program.
Okay.
So we are utilizing our nonprofit partners.
So I am interested in the for sale properties, just like Councilman Coghill was asking. And I had some previous conversations, and thank you, Mr. Geiger, for that. Just to have an understanding of the for sale development in my area in particular, because I think that my area is also one in District 1 that is in need of affordable housing, but also long-term affordability where we can, really make a difference long-term. There's a lot of vacant property, lighted property. I know we have a lot of different neighborhoods, there's like 14 neighborhoods, and a lot of different ideas out there in those neighborhoods on how they would like to see these funds spent, but also just affordable housing in general. And I was wondering, I know that the number is 0 in my district for sale development. Is there an opportunity for, I would really like that opportunity to understand, besides this meeting, to sit down and really understand how I can be a partner in this program so that we can really turn that number into a positive number in District 1. I don't know off the top of your head, is there a breakdown of where most of the for sale development has been happening?
So the for sale development, and some of you may have seen an article ran about it recently, the for sale development has been slightly underutilized just due to the timing of where the community development corporations were on their projects at the time. We've only committed funding to, I think, about 4 or 5 different projects. There was the Lawrenceville Community Land Trust, a couple houses in Oakland, and a couple houses in the Hill District, and then the modular development being built in Garfield. Those were our recent awards. We are aware of other projects coming in through the pike. I know Manchester Citizens Corporation is applying this month, and the Northside Leadership Conference has a couple other projects as well, and we're keeping sort of our eyes on that to make sure that this, as diverse as possible through the city is applying for the program.
And so thank you for that. And so as my office tries to figure out how we will be impactful with affordable housing on the north side, we're constantly having discussions on how that will look with multiple different organizations on the north side that, for instance, the Perry Hilltop Alliance. They have, they are looking into land trust and how that really is going to work out for them and whether or not they join City of Bridges and move forward with that. A lot of this is something that I've been asking these groups, but also professionals as well, how we can really use a model that's going to work for others. Is there a model that we're using that has shown to be effective in other areas that have a lack of affordable housing? For instance, if I'm to think about, the amount of money that's being spent on rental units, and also the amount of money that may go to second deferred mortgages, and possibly when they go for sale, they can be ones that may not have a deed restriction, that there can be a big profit made from the owner. And this just makes me wonder more and more on how we are trying to build wealth, whether that is the goal in some single family homes, and how this program will address that, because I think that's a pretty big question that all of us have is building wealth, is that, should we be looking into these deed restrictions, or should there be an opportunity for a new homeowner to make to build wealth in that home and to be able to sell and then purchase another home and continue to build wealth. Do you have any thoughts on that? Is there something that, is there a model that we're using? Is there something that I should just be constantly looking at to understand this, whatever you all are doing with that?
Well, so I think what you're referring to is the legislation itself has a clause in it that says when the funding is used for sale development, that it needs to be affordable at 80% area median income in perpetuity, like for 99 years, basically. So for this particular for sale development program, when the CDCs do utilize the housing opportunity funds, we do record a 99-year deed restriction, which means that the homeowner who purchased it, when they go to resell, they do need to sell it to another household at 80% AMI, which I agree with your concern that does limit the amount of, kind of funding, that money that they can make or to increase to their equity. But the flip side of it, of course, is that it preserves the affordability in the neighborhood moving forward through the future, which is what I think when the legislation was written, what people had in their mind. Now, we do have some other programs at the URA where we record second mortgages on a recapture basis, not on a resale basis, which does allow for some of that. So we are looking at ways of maybe intermixing sort of the two, so we can kind of do combinations. But right now, according to the legislation, it does need to be resold to somebody at 80% AMI.
And that's up to the homeowner?
The homeowner would need to be aware of that when they purchase the house, and then there would be a deed restriction recorded. So when the homeowner goes to sell, he will be reminded of that by the title company.
Are there any concerns with that? Should there be a nonprofit that is actually addressing that instead of leaving it up to
right.
There might be 20 people that apply for that.
Right.
There's other homes that are selling for a lot more money around there as home prices increase.
Right. So the land trust concept that the City of Bridges, the Lawrenceville Community Land Trust does, that puts that responsibility in the hand of the nonprofit, because the land trust owns that land in the future. Right now, not all the community development corporations in the city, want to go that route. They want to, go the route of selling the land and the house outright, which is why the URA then records the deed restrictions. So we've seen both, but we can't require one over the other.
Thank you.
Burgess.
First of all, Jessica, I want to thank you for your work. I think I have said both privately and publicly how much we value your expertise and your knowledge and your work project. You are certainly one of the URA's treasures, and I've learned a lot from you over the years. I've been a member of council. I want to talk a little bit about the fund and then deviate a little bit and come back to it. So at this pace that we're using the Housing Opportunity Fund, at the pace where this fund is helping, 180, whatever the number is, whatever that number is, it's helping, whatever the number is, 4, 5, 6
600.
I mean,
Probably
probably
about
about
1,100
1,000
units
across
total.
all
Okay.
programs.
That's
yeah.
fine, it's helping 1,000 people. At this rate, and the number of affordable units we need in the city is close to what, 20?
20,000 shortage was what the needs assessment said from 5 years ago.
So if this fund continues to move at this pace, how long would it take us to eliminate the affordable housing crisis in the city of Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I mean, I guess 20 years at 1,000 a year. It depends how many stay online or how many additional units go offline. I mean, the fear in the city is we're losing our naturally occurring affordable housing.
So I'm going to suggest that even though we're helping, the problem is not diminishing, it's actually getting worse year by year. That is, if we continue to do this great thing that we're doing, no doubt about it, great thing, you're the right administrator, we're doing all sorts of programming, we're stabilizing, we're building new housing, we're doing home ownership. But if we continue to do exactly what we're doing, the problem will get worse. Probably.
Possible.
Okay. So I want to deviate a little bit, since you're here. I want to talk about the Pittsburgh Development Fund. I'm not sure how many members of council are really familiar with it, so let's talk about it a little bit. Explain, because you've been in the URA a long time, and again, you're my resident expert. Would you explain to council what the Pittsburgh Development Fund is at the URA?
The
Go ahead.
Pittsburgh Development Fund is a large source of funding that we have. It was funded by a bond issuance with the city, and the fund is currently governed by a co-op with the city.
Do you remember how much the bond was?
I believe it was 60 million, but well before my time.
About 20 years ago?
I believe it was in the
Before that.
mid-90s.
Okay. And what is that money used for primarily?
The money is primarily used for larger development deals throughout the city.
Such as?
It can be used for market rate housing to incentivize like historic preservation. There was a deal in East Allegheny that was historic preservation development where we used PDF. We also use it for site assembly and other larger developments.
So let's take an example. Southside Works. Wasn't that money used for Southside Works?
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know
the
the
answer.
answer.
Some of it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Some of it was used for Southside Works. So, 20 years ago, the city decided that investing in very wealthy communities, putting high-end businesses like Lazarus was a priority for this city. And so, it took money that was supposed to go to taxpayer relief, right? That was the funding. That's how we got the fund. We diverted taxpayer relief funding from the state that's supposed to go to homeowners. Instead of going to homeowners, which was the intent of the state given money, we diverted it and took it to the URA. The city guaranteed a bond. We did $60 million of a bond issue for making sure that the wealthiest people in Pittsburgh got amenities, right? We built Southside Works. Some of the great expansion you see in Southside did not happen accidentally. It happened because the city took city dollars and invested in it, right? I actually think it was genius. So I want to make sure you know the road I'm going on. I think it was absolutely genius. I think Baru and Murphy, they were right. They did that, some of the things didn't work, like Lazarus didn't work, but mostly what they did worked. Southside Works works. Southside Works is a great development. It's not diverse at all. It is actually one of the least diverse developments in the city of Pittsburgh. It's very not diverse at all. It's not diverse by race. It's not diverse by outcome, by income. It's extraordinarily homogeneous. It is mostly for the benefit of a very select group of people. Great development, not diverse. I don't know any African-American vendors in Southside Works. There may be one. I don't know of one. I know there's very few African-American people that live there, and know that for a fact, probably 97%. And so it was a great thing we did. and it made Southside better. And all the people who lived there, again, not a very diverse community, but they all benefited tremendously from public investment. And the city as a whole got more tax dollars. It created an entertainment district in part. You know, I go there to the Cheesecake Factory. I go there to McCormick and Smith's. Love it, wonderful, go there. Yeah. So when the city thinks something is important, in this case, non-diverse, wealthy, Pittsburghers, we know exactly how to invest in them. We know exactly how to do it. And we do it at scale to make sure that it has an impact. Yeah. I'm going to suggest then, and so the Pittsburgh Development Fund is actually petering out. It was mostly a revolving loan fund, mostly, right? It was mostly a revolving loan fund, right? So it wasn't a grant, it was a revolving loan fund that was used, though, to finance these big projects, great big projects. Genius. Well, if we agree that redlining happened in the city of Pittsburgh in the 30s and has happened until today, there's a map that I will be at some point showing the council that shows mortgages and the percentage of mortgages, and it's almost sickening, right? African Americans are rejected at an abysmal rate for mortgages. They're even rejected for mortgages in the communities they live in. They can't even get mortgages in Homewood, in Larimer, right? They're rejected at abysmal rates, at high rates, right? And so it's hard for them to own homes, and because of redlining and systematic racism in the city, the housing crisis is extraordinarily challenging in African American communities and for African American people. We agree with that, right? That's a fact. Now, I'm going to argue, and you're going to hear this over and over from me, what we did for wealthy people because it was important to us. You know, it was really important for us to create this wealthy, exclusive, and in fact, that's part of the reasons that we don't talk about this publicly. That's why St. Clair Village was never rebuilt. The truth of why it wasn't rebuilt. We have other words, but if we're going to be honest, and as I promised council, I will start being extremely honest. The reason that St. Clair Village was not rebuilt is because they didn't really want people walking down from St. Clair Village, to come and shop in Southside Works. It kind of would break the ambiance of it, really. That's actually why it wasn't rebuilt. And we can say other things, but that's why it wasn't rebuilt. That's the truth of it. That was before my time. Know that to be true, though. So we now face this crisis that is disproportionately affects black and brown people. I'm going to argue it is time to do the same thing we did for the wealthiest people in Pittsburgh. We ought to do it for those people too. We need to take out a bond of about $60 million in a revolving loan fund and incentivize low-income spending in the city of Pittsburgh. Now, that bond would be able to do the things that Mr. Wilson and Mr. Coghill wants to do. You get a big chunk of money you can pour into for sale housing, because it's a revolving loan fund, and it will be around for 20, 30 years, and people can pay it back, and so it doesn't just deplete itself, it feeds on itself. You would see absolute, Jessica, you know this better than me, right? You would see, more 4%. You would see even the money we set aside for choice. Instead of taking it from the capital budget, we could take it from this fund, right? We could do a variety of things to guarantee a steady pipeline of affordable housing over the next 15 years. So that's that's my thinking. You're going to hear me talk about this now, publicly, privately, ushering it over and over and over and over again. This was great. So we need to take part of this money in the future, right? Not all of it, but a portion of it, and maybe a portion of someplace else, right? Guarantee a bond, get that money on the front end, put it into a revolving loan fund, and do what we did for wealthy people in Pittsburgh, wealthy mostly white people in Pittsburgh, we did this for them because they were important to us. I'm going to say, well, if African Americans and poor people have the same worth, let's do exactly the same thing. Let's create the same process. Let's do the same thing that we know works. It absolutely works. Let's do it, and if because we know our history has been inequitable. Our history has been one of systematic institutional racism, right? And I'm not saying the fund itself did a bad thing, but it invested in wealthy communities, right? And I'm going to say that we should do the same thing for the entire city. So that's going to be my little soapbox. I'm starting it today, but I won't end it. I'm going to keep marching down this road until our city does what I think is right. The fund is almost gone, right? The 20 years, I think.
Well, I hope not. I think we have another 9 years. Oh, you mean a PDF?
Yeah.
Oh.
PDF. Yeah.
The PDF, that revolving loan fund is mostly depleted. Not completely, but it's winding down.
I wouldn't say it's mostly depleted.
But it's winding down.
It's a revolving loan fund, and I think the URA and the URA's board has made smart investment decisions over the years. So as we continue to get the repayments of those good loans back, I mean, there's a healthy balance in the PDF.
Okay, good. So then it's even better. And it's been since the 90s, so it's been over 20 years, right? It's at least 20 years, 20-some years. So that for the next 20, 30 years, we can do the same thing for affordable housing, right? We can do exactly the same thing and invest and make this a priority. It's something we absolutely can do. Now, Mr. Lavelle and I have talked about this probably 2 years ago.
Yep.
And we looked at it, and it wasn't the right time, but I think today this is now the right time. So I approve. I will vote for this today. I'm excited. I want to congratulate Mr. Lavelle. This was his baby. I think this is probably one of the most significant things in terms of the people we care about that we've done as a member of council. So I want to congratulate him on shepherding this through. And so I wanted to at least today begin to lay down, because I'm going to start talking about this over and over and over and over again. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other members for first round? If not, I'm going to chime in real quick, then I'll come to you, Mr. Councilman. One, just to pick up on Reverend Burgess's point about the need for a bond. We did start having this conversation 2 years ago. We did actually have at least one meeting with PNC where we talked through what it would look like to go to bond. At that time, there were, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there were at least 3 challenges. One was demonstrating the ability to spend, right? You couldn't go to bond if you couldn't actually demonstrate the ability to spend those dollars. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Smith, but don't we have more projects potentially in the pipeline than we actually have funding for at this point?
Yes.
Thank you. So we're now at a point where, with the approximately 1,100 or so individuals that we've served, we now have more projects upcoming with requests to the URA than we actually have dollars for. In order for us to actually have enough dollars, we would need to increase our budget, increase the amount of city dollars that we're sending over to the URA by probably about $6, $7, $8 million in order to meet that demand. So we do have the ability to spend. One of the other things we need to discuss is, do you want to do a taxable versus a non-taxable bond? Because you can use those dollars differently. I will also begin to argue that I think we should be doing less soft spending with the Housing Opportunity Fund and more hard dollars, more bricks and mortar work than we're currently doing, because that's what allows us to be more of a revolving loan fund. If we use those dollars on such soft costs, those dollars are going out the door and we're not able to recoup them and turn them back over. But depending on what type of bond we went to, we could potentially have some additional dollars for soft purposes. And then the last one was the repayment, right? When you go to bond, and someone smarter than I, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're going to usually do a minimum of 15 years, probably more like 20.
20.
Okay. We, as a body, did the Housing Opportunity Fund, dedicated $10 million for 12 years. The idea of going to bond was we could go to bond 60, 70, 80 million, whatever that number is. We could pledge those dollars as the repayment source. However, those dollars run out after 12 years. So and I think we need to do some consideration there, because I think this program crosses all districts. This has been very successful for everyone within the city of Pittsburgh. I think we need to begin honestly having a conversation about extending the Housing Opportunity Fund into the future in order to be able to do that bond. But I do believe the time is now, and I do believe we should actually absolutely be considering and thinking through how to do it. Councilman Coghill, second round.
I'll be brief. Essentially, you're acting like a bank at this point, are you not? Or a mortgage company, is that right?
Well, so the answer to that is complicated, because yes and no, because most banks and mortgage companies don't do the grants and also the soft financing that we do. So that is, one concern when looking at bond financing is you have to be able to pay it back, and some of what we do is not, something that people are paying back.
And I don't totally disagree with Reverend Burgess and Councilman Lavelle's opinion on that. However, if I'm not going to say it was failed, but for people here at this table to say that the PDF from the 90s is teetering out, why is that? I'm just wondering. And if it is, it really scares me to issue another bond, I will tell you.
I mentioned previously, it's not petering out. The repayment stream to the PDF is very healthy. We're not worried about funds.
How healthy?
I can get back to you with that information.
So the bonds for the PDF were paid off. That's a correct statement, I think.
Yeah, the bond
Right.
has been turned over.
It's been turned over. So what's remaining of PDF is the URA lending it like a bank and then getting repaid like a bank.
So if you would include that in the figures that I asked you before, as far as what that fund started out as and what's in it now. That's all I need is those two hard numbers. The other thing that just jumped off the page at me when you were talking earlier, Jessica, you said the URA can take up to 10% of the Affordable Housing Care Act annually,
Correct.
which would be $1 million,
Correct.
right? Is used for,
The staff for the programs.
so we're through the first year?
Yes, we've been operating for more than a year now, and we expended the first year of the administration funding.
The entire $1 million?
Correct.
Okay, on staffing / what else?
Staffing and overhead and related costs. We also had large startup costs for the first year through a contract with a consultant to help us set up the fund.
Yeah. Also in the legislation, the HOF is required to issue an annual report back to council on how these funds were expended. And so you'll see in the annual report that we'll be releasing later this year, sort of breakout of those costs.
Okay, so the $1 million that the URA takes, the 10% that they take, none of that goes to brick and mortar. It's all salary, startups, things like that, things of that nature. It's a lot of money. How many people you have working on this?
Like their full-time gig, about 7 or 8, and then we have supportive staff, with our legal and our finance and construction departments.
Gross?
Sorry that I didn't realize that this conversation was going to go on so long. We're kind of pushing the time limit about when we're going to lose the URA, because we clearly have a lot to talk about, a lot more than that has gone into other topics. But I didn't know if our director of budget had anything to add on the numbers of the Pittsburgh Development Funds, because I was looking at him over there. Do you have any current numbers? So the question I think that we can come back to another time is how much money is revolved, and I think the ancillary point here is that it's now free and clear of its bond obligations.
Yes.
Right? So the point of a revolving loan fund is that you get the money back.
Right.
And so the money that has been paid back is basically unrestricted funds.
Yes.
And then secondly, we didn't really hear who the people on the co-op and decision-making board are. Is it entirely up to the URA board of directors, or does council have a voice on the direction? So that's a problem for me. And so there's just a lot of, this is a whole other topic, and thank you, Councilman, for bringing it up. It's quite interesting. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the bill is passed. Councilwoman, you want to stay in your committee and just finish it all out?
Sure, I'm happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bill 19.
Bill 19, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewer facilities plan for the District 15 Beta development at 1465 Smallman Street.
Motion to hold 2 weeks.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is held 2 weeks. Bill 35.
Bill 35, resolution requesting the approval of an intermunicipal transfer of liquor license from Bell Pug to the applicant No 950 Penn LLC for the premises located at 950 Penn Avenue, known as No 950 Penn LLC.
Motion to approve with discussion. Second. And so this is not in my district. I'll just defer to the councilman.
This needs held for, no, the public.
We had it. We had
Yes,
it
yes.
when we
This
had
was the one I
right.
did yesterday. This is a venue downtown on Penn Avenue across from the Marriott Hotel, fully supportive.
Great.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill passed. Bill 109.
Bill 109, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewer facilities plan for the townhomes on Fifth Avenue. Project located on tax map parcel is 5127, 2159, 5131, 5133, and 5135 Fifth Avenue.
Motion to hold 2 weeks.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is held 2
Is
weeks.
that right? Was it 2 weeks?
That will take us to the beginning of the agenda, which is the Finance and Law Committee chaired by myself. I'm gonna ask if the clerk would please read 123, 124, 125 together. Although they're separate bills, this is just a very technical amendment. Each one of these bills has already been executed, but payment carried over to 2020, so we have to make a technical amendment to reflect that it's being paid in 2020.
Bill 123, resolution amending Resolution 748, which authorized the mayor and director of finance to execute an agreement of sale and all related documents necessary to effect the purchase by the city in lieu of taken by eminent domain of 410 Matthews Avenue in the 30th Ward to adjust the code account information to the 2020 year. Bill number 124, resolution amending Resolution 629, which authorized the purchase of certain property by the city in lieu of eminent domain in order to advance city's proposed permanent closure of the Timberland Bridge to provide specific pay information and adjust the code account information to the 2020 year. Bill number 125, resolution amending Resolution 702, which authorized the mayor and director of finance to execute an agreement of sale and all related documents necessary to effect the purchase by the city in lieu of taken by eminent domain of 35 and 33 Semiseer Street in the 26th Ward by adjusting the code account information to the 2020 year.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All three bills pass. Bill 22.
Bill 22, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code at Title II, Fiscal Article 7, Business-Related Taxes, Amusement Tax, definitions to update language in the city code.
Motion to hold 1 week, please.
All, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is held 1 week. Bill 107.
Bill 107, resolution amending Resolution 94 for the issuance of a warrant in favor of Diane and Ronald K. Barkley. The issuance of a warrant in the total, in favor of Jordan Tax Services as final settlement related to the actions filed in the Common Pleas Court of Allegheny County by changing the issuant to read as follows: the issuant of a warrant in the total amount of $8,500 payable to Diane and Ronald K. Barkey as final settlement related to the actions filed in the Common Pleas Court of Allegheny County.
Motion?
Motion approved.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill passes. Bill 108.
Bill 108, resolution for issuance of a warrant in the total sum of $3,490 in favor of Tri-Rivers Consulting Services related to expert medical testimony of James L. Cosgrove, M.D., for use at trial in reference to the matter of Willa Mae Matthews versus the City of Pittsburgh.
Motion approved.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill passes. We do have invoices that need motion for approval.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Invoices are approved. I don't believe we have interdepartmental transfers. We do have P cards for approval. Need a motion for the P cards?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill, P cards are approved. That takes us to public safety, chaired by Mr. O'Connor.
Bill number 70, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of public safety to enter on behalf of the city into financial and in-kind sponsorship agreements for the city's Office of Special Events 2020 season.
Motion to hold 1 week.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is held 1 week. Takes us to Public Works, chaired by Mr. Coghill.
Bill number 117, resolution amending and supplementing resolution number 316 entitled Resolution Providing for a Contract and/or Agreements for the Preliminary Design and Final Design Services during construction and miscellaneous services for traffic signal installation of the South Side Signal Project and providing for the payment of the costs not to exceed $390,213.38 to account for an amendment to the contract that increased the total project cost but not to exceed $536,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill carries.
Yes, sir.
Bill 103,
Yes.
resolution granting unto Matt Barnett Day 3 Design for their successors and assign the privilege and license to construct and maintain and use at their own cost and expense a stormwater runoff mitigation rain garden at 915 Liberty Avenue in the 2nd Ward, 6th Council District.
Motion to approve.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill passes. That takes us to Human Resources Committee, chaired by Mr. Kraus.
Bill 105, resolution providing for the issuance of a warrant in favor of Effect, formerly Comcast, in the amount of $6,878.25 for digital advertising services in connection with the citywide recruiting plan and providing for the payment of costs thereof.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Bill passes. Bill 106.
Bill 106, resolution providing for the issuance of a warrant in favor of SHRM in the amount of $16,500 for Pennsylvania and federal labor law posters and providing for the payment of the costs thereof.
To approve.
Second.
Discussion? Councilwoman Strasburger.
I just have a question about the cost of this. I'm wondering exactly why it costs so much for posters.
Anyone from the administration here to discuss Bill 106?
Janet is out. She had some minor eye surgery. I think she's back on a very limited basis, but I'll be happy if you want to.
I don't need to, I mean, I don't want to hold it up if it needs to be paid, but I'm curious why it costs $16,500 for labor law posters. I'm sure there's a reason, but I'm curious why.
We are required for, may I? We're required every time there is a change of any kind whatsoever in labor law, we are required to reprint those posters. This is a one-time expenditure to reprint them regardless of the number of changes that could possibly take place over a 3-year period, if I remember correctly. And so it's a one-time, we buy it in bulk, we pay one time, and no matter how many times we are required by federal law to reprint those posters, they're covered.
Do you happen to know how many posters this covers?
Not off the top of my head, but even I was surprised to hear how many times regulations change, paid sick days being one of the examples. Here's, Director, you want to come up? I think I'm doing an okay job of explaining this sort of one-time expenditure, but you probably will do it better.
Sorry, I ran up. Janet Manuel, Director of HR and Civil Service. So for 106, so each respective employer has to make sure that they have the respective Pennsylvania federal labor law posters. This amount of monies is to cover the city of Pittsburgh. We have over 150 posters throughout the city departments. each time legislation is approved or updated, your posters have to reflect the most updated laws. So this amount of money, $16,500, will cover the city of Pittsburgh for over a 3-year time frame, that if any legislation is updated or approved, all of our 150 plus posters will be updated and sent for us to post. So we're in compliance. What is on legislation in Harrisburg is regarding hourly rate, hourly wage. It is subject to increase in July of this year, then January of 2021, then July of 2021. So that is at least 3 times that we would need to have the most current and accurate employment law poster in our areas. That means we would have to pay almost $40 per poster. So 40 times 150 for the July update, 40 times 150 in January, 40 times 150 for next July. So this 3-year contract is actually saving us over $15,000. So that way we're covered for all of the federal and state updates. So whenever they change the hourly rate for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we'll be covered, and they'll be disseminated to us.
Okay, so that makes much more sense. It's not a
Sure.
one-time printing for
No.
150 posters. It's to cover us for any future changes over the next 3
For
years.
the 3 years. And due to the fact that there's that legislation seated at the table in Harrisburg regarding our minimum wage, we want to make sure that we are in compliance.
Did I just hear you say it's $40 per poster, though?
Correct.
Is there
Up
any
to-
way to bring that cost down?
That is our negotiated good rate, believe it or
Okay,
not.
That seems expensive for a poster, but
You are
I
cor-
understand that you've negotiated
You-
it, so
you are
I won't
correct.
challenge you on that, but
Yeah,
I just
you are
okay,
correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Does that help?
And thank you, Councilman, for
You're welcome.
explaining
Thank you.
it.
You did a better job than I did.
Oh, no, you're fine, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Director.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill passes.
Thank you.
Land Use and Economic Development Committee, chaired by Mr. Wilson. Bill 110.
Bill 110, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of city planning to accept a remittance of Point Park University in the amount of $15,000. This remittance will fund the design and fabrication of historic district signage not to exceed $15,000.
Motion to approve.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill passes. That'll take us to Urban Recreation Committee, which is chaired by Reverend Burgess. Bill 111.
Bill 111, resolution adopting the plan submitted to the electors of the city, restoring Pittsburgh's parks and the Parks Plan. The Parks Plan by Pittsburgh Park Conservancy prior to the November 5th, 2019 municipal election as the official Parks Plan of the city and of the city's Park Trust Fund.
Motion to approve a brief discussion.
Second.
So I'm going to hold it, but I want to just have a brief conversation about where we're at, because I think there was some misunderstanding last week. There are 3 different things that council is now considering. One is the tax itself, right? We are considering the actual tax itself, right? That we are going to have homeowners pay a portion of a tax that will be collected by the city of Pittsburgh. That's number 1. Number 2, the second thing that council has to do and is doing is establishing the trust fund. It is the trust fund that Councilwoman Smith asked me to work with Councilman Coghill and whoever else wants to work about. On February 4th, I sent out this copy of the trust fund and sent it to all members of council and said that I await any conversation in terms of its changes. And so that's where I'm at now. I have, on February 4th, I sent an email to all members of council saying this is what, having taken what the mayor wanted, what members of council wanted, I created this sort of document. And so I am willing and certainly able, and will talk to any member of council concerning the trust fund legislation. In this legislation which is not this bill, but that it has an annual authorization, because I believe that in certain trust funds, they never come back before council. You know, we set them up and they just go spend it. And I don't want that to be in this case. I think it should be an annual allocation. There is some, not that this is the right thing, but it's some of the ideas that council has had. And some of it is limiting how much of it can be used for, how it's used. Now, that's not in stone. I just took everyone's ideas and created a document. And so I look forward to perhaps changing this, not using it, rejecting it, doesn't matter to me. But I just want to be clear that I have done what I was asked to do, and did that in February 4th. And you should have an email with this in your email. Finally, the final thing is what I introduced last week, which is different than those two. It is a third standalone piece. Even after you do the tax, and even after you do the trust fund, you have to talk about how to spend the money. I'm going to suggest that we need to have a vehicle to talk about the annual distribution. And when my argument has been, since the Parks Conservatory created with the city a park plan, and the park plan was used to get the voters to vote on it, right? That we accept this as the plan, and then every year over the next, I think it may be a 10-year plan, maybe, over the next 10 years, we then reconcile how we expend the funds in the trust fund and how it relates to the plan, to make sure, because the plan talks about equitable distribution of funding, that we would fund things based on those in most need. And so we adopt this, and then annually we check. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be changes, because council has the authority, certainly the ultimate authority, if we write it right, to distribute these funds. But we'll have a guide. Doesn't mean it can't be changed. 5 members of council will be able to change it. But it'll have a guide, and we'll be able to fulfill the interests of the city. So on Tuesday, I believe it, Tuesday, the 25th, the people who helped design this plan will be here. I'm also going to ask members of the city who participated in developing the plan. It was not done in isolation, and so we'll ask Public Works, Public Parks Director, other people who participated in the plan come. The people who did the data collection will be here out of Philadelphia, and they'll be here. So all the people who had something to do with the creation of the plan will be here for the post agenda, where we'll lay out how the plan was developed, and we can decide whether or not it meets, our mustard. And then as we move forward, though, I will at least be saying, at least in our conversations, I'll say that we should do the same level of diligence. If this plan is not acceptable, that's fine, then we will do the same level of diligence to create a plan that has the same kind of intention, with the same kind of, and we can actually use their research. So using their research, have the same kind of conversation. So that's the 3 differing things and the pace that we're on. I just want to sort of explain my thinking and how I'm moving forward. So I think the trust fund, still, we can chat about it. I'm willing to meet or talk, or however members of council, or even without me, want to participate. I've done what the council president asked me to do, and so that's kind of where I'm at.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gross?
Thank you. So we're talking, the bill on the agenda today is 0111 that we're about to hold. Just again, for the listener to keep straight, it has helpfully in Legistar 4 attachments that are substantial on paper here, which is the 4 documents I think are easier to look at off of Legistar than they even are off the Parks and Conservancy's website, that have all of the plan that the councilman is referring to. Last week I asked for raw data Because the tables in the document that are attached to the Councilman Burgess's legislation are summarized from about 10 different data sources. And so, as the councilman was just mentioning, I guess it was a firm out of Philadelphia that I have not directly corresponded with. I am kind of trying to hunt down that raw data that they combined and added up and created indices for, that are the summarized metrics that are attached to the legislation. So I would like to see the source data, and I've sent emails. The councilman directed me straight to the Parks Conservancy. They have not yet responded. I've sent a couple of emails just this week. The President Jane Miller was out of town or something like that. I got a bounce back email. And so I think it's going to be helpful if we are digging into this, that we want to see, for example, what geographic units were used, right? And so source data is usually from something like census tract data, if it's from the American Community Survey, which is the survey that the census does in between the decennial censuses that tells us about the communities in the city. It's based on sampling. It's not a total census the way the decennial census is. But those were aggregated into bundles, so to speak, in the document that is attached here. And so we want to disaggregate them so that we can see how they chose to put various numbers together under the labels that are here. And so I'll still be looking for that data, and I will keep council informed and share the data as I get it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Coghill.
Yes. First, I wanted to go on record in saying I'm not for collecting any of this tax money until we actually have something that we can all agree on and implement, okay? Secondly, I have been working another plan, I thought, with other council members, and I want to thank those who stopped in my office and put their 2 cents in. And I hope to have something by next week with everybody's input, and something I hope that we can all live with. Sorry about that. That's me. So, but I just really wanted to go on record to say, I'm not for enforcing this tax until we actually have something in writing or have a plan behind it. So, and one other thing was the post agenda for next week. Is the director, Jane Miller, going to be here? Jane Miller, the director, is going to be here. And you said the people who did the surveys are going to be here, which is very important to me. I'm glad to see that you lined that up. I'm going to request also that the campaign manager, Mr. Matt Preston, be here as well, if that's...
Can we have interrogative?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple things. I've just been keeping track of this. So, first of all, Councilman Gross, Jane... You saw it, yeah, you saw it.
I was looking.
Yeah, it's there.
I finally just saw it. She responded this morning. We should have it by the end of the week.
Right. So that, I've been kind of keeping track of that. So I can only tell you what my intentions are. There are 2 differing things that are interrelated, but separate by both funding and separate by messaging, right? There is the Pittsburgh Parks plan. That is what you have, right? That was funded, researched, and designed by a group of people, right? Then there is the campaign that used the plan to convince voters. That campaign was funded separately, staffed separately, and although there was some interaction, but 2 really very separate things. So what I'd like to do, and I have no problem with members having this conversation, but I think they're 2 different conversations to have, both important, right? But I think it becomes confusing if you do them both at the same time. So my interest is because my interest is not the conservatory. My interest is the plan itself. So I'd like to focus Tuesday on just the plan. If council wants to go into the campaign, my suggestion is to either do it separately. You could do it at the end. You could do however council wants to do it. But in the post agenda, in the first part, just doing the plan itself is going to take an hour probably of us, a couple hour and a half, 2 hours. I think we should focus just on the plan. And if you want to go at the campaign, which is again separate money, separate staff, important, I think we should figure out another time, or a time, if you want to do it at the end of this, but I think it's important to keep the two separately because it was funded separately, designed separately, with separate staff, and very different funding streams. If that makes some sense.
So we would have another post agenda?
Well,
How would
again,
you,
I
what
think
would you recommend?
I mean, it's up to you. I think I don't know council's appetite. So I will follow your lead on council's appetite. But I think you'll have a whole different conversation, right, about the things. So I think you could have them back to back, or if you want to have them on different days, I think it's, you can talk, we have time. So think about how you want to do it, and I'll be supportive of however you want to do it.
Okay. Now, my point is, I have a lot of questions about a lot of these things, and I want to get through, and I want to do it in public. I want the public to see these conversations, and that's at a post agenda, and that works great for me.
So it's really your appetite. So it's your time. We could do it one of two ways. For clarity, I think if you can keep the two things separate, I think it makes more sense because it actually. They are funded separately. They are two different. They are connected. Certainly, they're connected.
You know what, Rev? That's fine. As long as I get my questions answered before we go moving any type of legislation, that's what I'm looking for.
So, do you want to do this? Again, I'm asking council's appetite. Would you prefer to do this as a separate post agenda or two parts of the same post agenda? That's really my question.
We can chew on that offline.
Yeah, I would suggest separate, but we can certainly discuss.
Yeah, we have time, but we don't know. We actually don't have time. Well, we kind of have time. We kind of don't. So we have time. Let me know. Right now, the way I've been pursuing this is to not do them together. That's the only thing. The way I've designed the post agenda for Tuesday is simply the parks, and with no conversation about
We're having
camping.
interrogative. It was President Smith, I think, who first brought up her concerns around those issues, so we should touch base with her, and she's out today.
Let me know.
Yeah.
Okay. So if
You finish, Councilman Kraus?
Yeah, so just briefly, I want to be mindful of preserving council's power within this conversation. I think verbiage is important. I would take umbrage with the parks plan. It was the parks recommendation that was developed through a listening tour, and they are recommendations to council, which I think we are obligated to take under consideration, but they are not definitive in nature.
And I would push back, Mr. Cross, if you don't allow me. That's what they call it. They called it the plan. I didn't call it the plan. That's what they call it.
I just argue the recommendations.
Yeah, but that's what they call it.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
So motion to hold for post agenda?
Second.
Has
Cablecast post
actually
agenda.
already been scheduled for Tuesday the 25th, I believe, at 1 o'clock.
1:30?
1:30? Okay, you're right. It is 1:30. All right, so motion to hold for Cablecast post agenda, and second?
Yes, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Bill is held for Cablecast post agenda. That has exhausted our agenda. I do have meeting announcements. A Cablecast public hearing is scheduled this afternoon at 1 p.m. on bills 2307, 29, 30, and 31 as they relate to the historic designation of the Weiss Federal Courthouse, the Bradbury, the City County Building, and the Pennsylvania National Bank. Council's second Cablecast public hearing this afternoon is scheduled at 2:30 p.m. on bills 2031 as it relates to zoning changes for UPMC Southside. An executive session is scheduled for Thursday, February 20th at 2 p.m. Is there any other discussion? Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you. I'd like to just point out for the record that Councilman Burgess motioned for his post agenda on the bill that was on today's standing agenda last week, which expedited the scheduling of it so that it's falling on Tuesday, just 6 days from now, which is Tuesday, the 25th of February, which the motion to hold that we just made, pending the Cablecast post agenda, puts it back on our standing committee just 1 week from today, which is before either of the public hearings will have happened.
No.
The public hearing on the taxes, right? If you held it pending a Cablecast post agenda, which is about to happen on February 25th.
So normally, our tradition is once a member moves for holding it for a post agenda, it doesn't go back on the agenda until the member requested to go back. So even though technically the hold is for the post agenda, it is our tradition that it won't come back until I ask for it to come back.
Okay.
And I won't ask for it to come back until we exhaust all these conversations. It'll come back when all three are on the table at the same time.
Thank you.
Any other members? If not, I would actually like to make one comment, because Councilman Coghill, you mentioned it when the URA was at the table about you're here to represent your district, which you are, as we all are, and we all defer to one another within our districts. But I also think it's important for us to keep the context of, although we're elected by district, we're actually here to represent the entire city of Pittsburgh. And so I just think it's important for us to keep that in mind as we begin to have these conversations about parks, which affects the entire city, as we have these conversations about equity, which is a citywide conversation, that we can't simply always isolate things just to our district, but we have to keep the larger context in mind. With that being said, need a motion to excuse the absent members, approve the minutes, and adjourn the meeting?
Second.
We are adjourned. All those in favor? Excuse me. We are adjourned.
Everybody always forgets.